Okay, now let's proceed naman sa fallacies. So there are common arguments which are invalid because false truth value of a certain statement or argument that is inevitable. Meaning hindi siya naiiwasan, 'di ba? And then there are also certain arguments that though at first glance parang they seem right. Okay naman siya, walang problema. So such type of argument is known as fallacy. So several common fallacies arise in incorrect arguments. So these fallacies resemble rules of inference, but are based on contingencies rather than tautology. So these are discussed here in the following section, and we're going to show the distinction between correct and incorrect reasoning. So so there are common arguments which are invalid, though at first glance they seem right, like what I've said. Such type of arguments is known as fallacy. So, for example, we have this argument, P implication Q, and Q, therefore, P. So, at first glance, parang sakto man siya, mura man siya og modus ponens, 'di ba? But actually, this is not a valid argument. This seems correct, but it is not. Note that when P is false and Q is true, P implication Q is true. So let's write it down. When P is false, Q is true, itong P implication Q, that is, true talaga yung value niya, right? So let's represent naman, or let's put the truth value of Q here. This is also true. So if we're going to find the truth value between the first premise at saka second premise, that should be true, right? However, ang result natin dito or yung conclusion is P, and our P has a truth value of false. Therefore, P is not a logical consequence or conclusion of P, implication Q, and Q. The above argument shown here is called the fallacy of affirming the conclusion. So that's the first type of fallacies. So let's have an example. So let's say if you do every problem in this book, then you will learn discrete mathematics. And you learned discrete mathematics. Therefore, you did every problem in this book. So at first glance, this sentence seems correct, right? Tama naman din na if you do every problem in this book, let's say yung book is discrete mathematics. So if you did or you do every problem sa book na yon, of course, matututo ka talaga ng discrete mathematics. So let's say, natuto ka talaga ng discrete mathematics. Then, I can conclude that you did every problem in this book. So, sakto naman siya, right? Parang wala naman siyang problema. So, let's try to represent each of these premises with propositional variables. So, let P denotes you do every problem in this book, and then Q denotes you will learn discrete mathematics. And we came up with this form. We can immediately conclude that, this statement is fallacy of affirming the conclusion. So, this is not a valid argument. But the question is, why do you think it's a fallacy of affirming the conclusion without looking at that form? So we need to understand it. So let's go to that idea. So let's go back to the premises, yung complete sentence or English statement talaga. So if you do every problem in this book, then you will learn discrete mathematics. So that's valid, 'di ba? Next, you learned discrete mathematics. Therefore, you did every problem in this book. So may problema tayo dito sa second premise at saka sa conclusion. So ask yourself, is it really a requirement na kailangan you have to did or you have to do all the problem sa book na yon just to learn discrete mathematics? No, you can't. Why? Yes, indeed it is possible for you to learn discrete mathematics. by answering every problem in this book. However, there are many ways in learning discrete mathematics, not just by solving certain problem in books. You can learn discrete mathematics by reading, listening to lectures, um, doing just few problems in the book, and so on and so forth. So you can't really conclude that this conclusion is correct. Okay? So that is an example of fallacy of affirming the conclusion. Okay, let's have another example. If today is Monday, then John will go to work. John will go to work, therefore today is Monday. So by just looking at this argument, it seems correct, right? But this argument is actually not valid din. So let's try to represent each of the premises using propositional variables. So let P denotes today is Monday and Q denotes John will go to work. And we came up with this form. So by just looking at that form, we can immediately conclude that this is fallacy of affirming the conclusion, right? But let's understand why. Okay, let's go back to the given premises. So if today is Monday, then John will go to work. So that's valid kasi Monday maybe yung trabaho niya is weekdays. So yeah, pupunta talaga siya sa work kasi Monday is a weekday. Now, going to the second premise. John will go to work. Therefore, today is Monday. Now ask yourself, how do you know that it is Monday today? Maybe today is Tuesday and John can still go to work. Or di ka, kasi wala naman sinabi that hindi siya makakapunta ng trabaho Tuesday. Monday lang talaga. Wala naman. Sabi niya lang Monday. So, maybe today is not Monday. Maybe today is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Ganon. So, this is another example of fallacy of affirming the conclusion. Okay? Okay, now let's proceed to the second type of fallacy, which is fallacy of denying hypothesis. So I have a compound proposition here, which is accordingly, this is not a tautology. So this is actually the same with this form. So ito siya is naka-vertical lang talaga. Ito naman is gawin natin yung same sa form ng fallacy of affirming hypothesis. So magiging P, implication, Q, not P, therefore, not Q. So, ganyan yung form niya. So, this is the form of fallacy of denying hypothesis. So, it seems like parang valid siya. Seems like parang modus tollens siya, but it's actually not. This is not a valid argument. Because, accordingly, when P is false, so let's try to write it here. When P is false and then Q is true, oops, sorry. So, when P is false and then Q is true, and then not P or true. Oops, yeah, that's true. And then not Q here is false. Okay, so as you can see, no, the conclusion is false siya, right? So therefore, the argument is invalid. So this type of incorrect reasoning is called the fallacy of denying hypothesis. Yeah. Okay. So let's have an example. So if Socrates is human, then Socrates is, how do you pronounce this? Is this Socrates? Yeah, I think it's Socrates, no? So if Socrates is human, then Socrates is mortal. So that seems valid. That's a valid statement. Kasi if tao si Socrates, and then mortal siya. Tama. Now, going to the second premise. Socrates is not human. Therefore, Socrates is not mortal. Now, ask yourself, can you identify that Socrates is not mortal just because he is not human? No, you can't actually. It doesn't mean na hindi tao si Socrates, hindi na siya mortal. Socrates can be an animal, not a human, but an animal can still be a mortal. So this is an example of a fallacy of denying hypothesis. So that's all for this video tutorial. Now you understood how to identify the validity of arguments, how to use rules of inference in building arguments and identifying its validity, and lastly, understood what is fallacy and its two types of arguments. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. God bless. Bye.